August 6th, 2012, Monday. Darkspeed made sure first team moved together from the time they left the dorm. During breakfast, when someone wanted to talk to Virtuoso about their dorms, Darkspeed curtly told them to see her in the evening. Next, he made sure they were 10 minutes early to their classroom and in their seats. The room was very large, with chairs and desks in the front facing a raised floor area with a white board. Along the back of the room were 6 big tables, each with 2 laptops, stacks of books, and several chairs. Drinking fountains, a kitchenette, and restrooms were along the sides of the room. In the very back of the room was a larger working area and desk, presumably for the teacher. The alphas were restless, and Olympian started pacing the room. "I thought this place would be action from the time we got here till the time we left for the field," Olympian said. "Sit down," Darkspeed said. "Why? The teacher's not even here." "Sit down, Olympian. You're supposed to listen to the leader," she said. "Why, you plan on putting me to my chair?" Olympian dared. "I could." "Show me." She looked at Darkspeed for a signal. "Go ahead, get him," Darkspeed said. She stood up and walked to Olympian, who squared himself off to her. "Make you a bet. Place your hands together in front of you, palm to palm," she said. "What's the deal?" Olympian said. "If I could hold your hands together for the count of 5, you sit down." "Any catch?" Olympian questioned. "No punching, no flying, no headbutting, nothing but using your strength to pull your hands apart." "Okay, it's a bet." The other alphas watched as she placed her hands on either side of Olympian's. She sandwiched his hands between hers and told Darkspeed to start the count. "Easy as cake," Olympian said. "Pie, you need to work on your food metaphors," Darkspeed said. "On your mark, get set." Olympian's eyes widened as he felt tremendous pressure on his hands. She looked into his eyes and smiled knowingly. "Go! 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, Darkspeed said. Olympian was still pulling with all his might to free his hands. She released his hands, and the others laughed in amazement. "Now sit down," she said as she took her own seat. Olympian sat down. "How did you do that?" "I focus my power out of my hands and feet best. If I use them both to attract, I can really get a grip on things between them." "Why didn't you do that when you fought Glimmer?" Midas asked. "It takes a second to ramp the power up like that, and Glimmer wasn't exactly sitting still." "Still, it's a cool trick," Olympian admitted. The door to the classroom opened, and an attractive young woman walked in. She was dressed in a fashionable, businesslike manner. Red hair and green eyes accented her medium-sized frame. "Good morning. My name is Miss Annabelle Waldron, and you must be first team," she said in an undisguised. "Yes, we are," Darkspeed answered. "Excellent. I'll be your teacher for the next 6 years. In that time, we have a great deal of material to cover. But before we start, I think introductions would be in order. Please tell me your name and where you come from." One by one, each of the alphas introduced themselves to their new teacher. Without exception, they used handles only. Bioforce went last. "Don't you want to know what our powers are?" "I've already read your profiles. Anyway, I'm more interested in how well you learn your lessons," Miss Waldron said. Olympian raised his hand. "You needn't raise your hand in here. Just be polite and don't talk over anyone." "Are you a superhero or an HU rep?" Olympian asked. "Good question. My father was a brain and my mother was an HU tech. Coach Connors recruited me 12 years ago to become a teacher here at Alpha. Bioforce thought she looked kind of young to have been a teacher for the last 12 years. If you don't mind my asking, how old are you?" "I'm 29. "You started teaching when you were 17? She asked. "No, this is my first class. Connors had me placed in an academic program to prepare me for this position." "Where did you go to school?" Darkspeed asked. "Well, I went to many different schools. First, I was trained in several posts at the HU and the UN. I was then sent to the universities of Cambridge, Oxford, Edinburgh, Glasgow, Tokyo, Nacional Autónoma de Mexico, de Sao Paulo, and de Bologna. I was also sent to Harvard, Stanford, MIT, École Normale Supérieure Paris, Australian National University, and the Swiss Federal Institute of Technology Zurich." First team looked like they had just been lied to. "You did all that in 12 years? Did you just go to each of those schools for lunch?" Darkspeed asked. Miss Waldron was now confident that her audience was paying attention. She walked to one side of the front of the room slowly while talking. "I received at least 2 degrees from each of those establishments. At present, I have 30 advanced degrees and can answer questions on almost any topic." Miss Waldron started walking back across the front of the room. As she walked, a duplicate of her appeared every other step. Soon, 7 Miss Waldrons stood across the front of the room. I have a 5 intelligence and a common photographic memory for each of me. Let's get started with our lessons, shall we? They spoke in unison. Each of the Miss Waldrons took one student to a table in the back. One Miss Waldron stood away from the others and started writing a schedule on the whiteboard in front. Those are the times we break for meals, the Miss Waldron sitting next to she said. The board read 0800 to 1100 classes, 1100 to 1130 in-room meal, 1130 to 1430 class, 1430 to 1500 in-room meal, and 1500 to unknown coach's class. She heard each of the Miss Waldrons say something similar to each of the members of first team. Do you all act independently? Yes, we do. The big asset we have is a common memory. One experiences something and we all have the same memory of it, her Miss Waldron said. So we each get our own tutor? That's why I was recruited. The students worked diligently with the Miss Waldrons until 1100 when 2 bots wheeled in dining carts. All right, everyone, 30 minutes for first lunch, the Miss Waldron in front said. The Miss Waldrons walked to the front and gracefully rejoined into one person. First team was happy to break after 3 hours of straight work. Once the bots opened the carts, Olympian was the first with a plate in his hand. Is this what both meal periods will be like in this room? Darkspeed asked. Yes, not leaving this room saves time. That way you get more teaching, Miss Waldron said. Why did you get rid of the other ones of you? Midas asked. Miss Waldron picked up a plate and said, No sense in eating 7 times as much as I need to. Soon, the students were back at work until their next break. The bots came in as before with carts for their second lunch. The Miss Waldrons were cleaning up class materials and straightening books. Each of you has homework that has to be done by tomorrow. Remember, if you log into any of the systems on campus, your profile will show everything the same as it is in here. The Miss Waldrons finished up and started to join together as one as she headed to the door. I'll see you all again at 0800. Enjoy the rest of your day. This is way more schoolwork than I ever thought we'd get, Olympian said. My brain feels like mush and I regenerate, Bioforce said. Even Darkspeed nodded. I hope I can remember everything. I feel like I went from the 6th grade to college, Midas said while getting a plate of food. She's just trying to figure out how much we can take this week. It'll give her a metric for pacing us, Virtuoso said as she bounced back to her seat. Midas looked at how Virtuoso didn't seem worn at all. You don't feel spent or overloaded? No, Virtuoso said before suddenly looking up. No, I'm not going to ramp up your brain again. Hold on a second. You can ramp up our brains? She asked. Yes, but if I focus your mind on one thing, it's lessened on everything else. Can you clear mental fatigue? Never tried, maybe. Olympian stood in front of her. Me first. Virtuoso placed one hand on the front of his head and closed her eyes. Your mind wanders a lot. You daydream. There. How's that? Olympian blinked and looked around. That's great. I feel really good. She then touched each of them in turn until she reached Darkspeed. Is it going to hurt? He asked in a defeated tone. Yeah, but it'll feel better when I'm done. Darkspeed stood in front of her and waited for the pain to hit him. There are some things in the world you can just count on. Most hurt, he thought to himself as he flinched. It's not that bad, Virtuoso said as she touched him. She tried to be gentle, but his mind resisted anyway. The instinctive fight his mind put up caused a backlash of pain that stung like a sharp object in the brain. Virtuoso respected the way he didn't budge when he felt it. There, all done. Darkspeed stepped back and did feel better. Thanks. I feel like I remembered today's lessons with real clarity. I did that. While I was coaxing your mind into a rejuvenated state, I reinforced the neural connections made today. What did she say? Olympian said. Brain feel good. Learning stick. Midas said to the much bigger boy. Ha ha, eat your lunch. While the alphas were eating their food, the door opened and Connors entered. He was carrying a shiny steel cup of coffee and moved like he was in no hurry. Coach, I thought we had till 1500 to eat second lunch, Darkspeed said. You do, I'm early. Connors walked over to the food trays and placed a few things on a plate. He then headed for the front of the room and sat on the edge of the raised floor facing the alphas. How is everyone adjusting to being here? Good, Olympian said. Yeah, it's good, Darkspeed said. Our rooms are amazing, Bioforce said. It's still not home, Midas said.